Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're grabbing a serious winter coat and plunging into one of history's most brutal, most fascinating chapters, the Ice Age.
We are.
And we're not just here for the usual story about woolly mammoths. We want to take a shortcut, really, to understand that time when Homo sapiens was absolutely not alone on the planet.
It's a piece of the puzzle that often gets missed, For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors weren't just fighting the cold or the predators.
Right.
They were in this complex, sometimes cooperative, sometimes brutal competition with other completely distinct versions of humanity.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Based on the material you've gathered, we're trying to figure out the impossible.
Yeah.
How did our species, a biologically unsuitable tropical species,
Literally built for the heat.
exactly, how did we manage to survive, even thrive, in conditions worse than modern Siberia, and ultimately dominate an environment that seemed designed to just wipe us out?
And to set that stage, you have to realize that when H. sapiens first showed up in Africa about 300,000 years ago, we were incredibly late to a very crowded and a very, very cold party.
Right, this wasn't some brief freeze.
Not at all. The Ice Age was this 2.6 million year-long series of brutal glacial cycles, and at times it hosted a real explosion of human diversity.
Okay, so let's unpack that world. Who were the main players, the main competitors when our ancestors started to venture out of Africa?
Well, first you had the ancient king, the long-reigning champion, Homo erectus.
Talk about successful.
Unbelievably so. They dominated huge regions for nearly 2 million years. And here's the kicker. They were the only human species to coexist temporally with all the other species in the Homo genus. They really set the standard for resilience.
And then you have our most famous cousins, the specialists, the Neanderthals,
The ones everyone thinks they know.
but are often portrayed so unfairly as these primitive brutes. But they were the true ice humans.
Right. They absolutely were. They'd been established in Europe for tens of thousands of years, and their bodies, stocky, barrel-chested, incredibly muscular, that wasn't random.
That was an adaptation.
A perfect biological adaptation for surviving those relentless European winters that could easily hit -40 Celsius. They were specialized, highly effective cold weather machines.
But the thing that's so fascinating here is that the family reunion was even bigger than just us and them.
Oh, far bigger. The latest genetic work suggests that at certain times you could have at least 5 or more Homo species coexisting at the same time.
5.
In Europe alone, during some periods, we can identify at least 8 distinct human populations, and some of these groups were genetically more different from each other than, say, a modern European is from a modern East Asian.
Wow, and we can't forget the ghost in the machine, right? The Denisovans.
Precisely. The ghost species, we know them from just a few tiny fragments from a single cave in Siberia, and yet their genetic mark is still here.
In modern populations.
Yeah, you look at people in Southeast Asia or Oceania today, and you can still find that Denisovan DNA. It just shows you this whole period was this complex, shifting mosaic of different human experiments, all interacting.
Which sets up the challenge perfectly. Because if the Neanderthals were biologically designed for the cold, we were the complete opposite.
We were. Homo sapiens evolved on the hot, open African savanna. We were built for dissipating heat.
Built for jogging in the sun, not navigating a blizzard.
And yet, around 70,000 years ago, groups start leaving Africa and they walk into a world where the map is just, it's unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable how? I mean, paint that picture for us.
Well, the climate is like modern Alaska or Siberia, but colder. Glaciers are covering everything,
Sure.
reaching down as far as Denmark and South Wales. So much water is locked up in ice that sea levels are tens of meters lower.
So the coastlines are completely different.
Completely. And North America is mostly just a giant, uninhabitable sheet of ice. So for our ancestors, survival meant hunting and gathering in waist-deep snow, with a constant, immediate risk of freezing to death.
No guaranteed food, no guaranteed shelter.
None. Every single day was a fight against hypothermia and starvation.
It sounds like a world designed to filter out anyone who wasn't a Neanderthal. But
Yeah.
here we are.
And that's the ultimate surprise, isn't it? Our ancestors didn't just tolerate this frozen apocalypse, they learned to dominate it.
How do we know that?
The evidence is clear. During the peak of the last glaciation, about 20,000 years ago, most animal species fled south. But we find Homo sapiens camps right in the middle of Central Europe. They stayed. They turned this lethal environment into a sustainable home.
So if biology was the Neanderthals' edge, what was ours? If our bodies weren't ready for that cold, where did our solution come from?
It came from our minds. From flexible cultural innovation, it was the ability to create technological and social solutions faster than the environment could kill us.
Okay, so let's break that down. You've identified 4 crucial areas of innovation. Let's start with the most basic defense, clothing.
Right. And this wasn't just about throwing an animal hide over your shoulders. I mean, that provides some warmth, but it leaves gaps. The cold gets in.
The genius was in a deceptively simple tool, the bone needle.
Exactly. And these weren't crude. We found bone needles from this period that are as fine and precise as modern metal ones.
And that precision is the key.
It's everything. It lets you do tight, precise stitching. It means you can make fitted clothes, parkas, trousers, mittens, boots. You create insulated layers, which are exponentially better at keeping you warm.
Which required this whole body of knowledge, right? Tanning the hides.
Which they often did using the animal's own brain, a kind of gruesome but brilliant detail. Then cutting the pieces, using animal tendons for thread. It was a complex craft.
That's incredible. Okay, so number 2, after clothing, is shelter.
Another massive hurdle. Caves are great, but they're rare. And you can bet they were violently contested real estate. Most groups had to build their own.
And these weren't just simple lean-tos.
Far from it. We found the remains of these complex dwellings made from the bones of their prey. Specifically, mammoth bones.
Using them as the structure.
As the structural framework, yes. Then covered with hides, insulated with moss and dry grass. Some were even partially dug into the ground for extra thermal insulation.
And they innovated on the inside, too.
They did. We see sophisticated internal hearths, like stoves, with what look like primitive ventilation systems, probably to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. They weren't just surviving, they were engineering a comfortable lifestyle.
And that lifestyle revolved around the third innovation, fire.
The mastery of fire, which went so far beyond just lighting a pile of wood.
You mean knowing which types of wood burned best, different ways to start it?
Dozens of methods, friction, percussion, and crucially, knowing how to keep live embers going while traveling.
How did they manage that?
By carrying hot coals in special containers made of tree bark or wrapped in wet moss. It was essentially portable central heating. The fire was also the social center.
A hearth.
It was where the community gathered. It's where stories were told, where knowledge was passed down. It's where the social bonds that held everything together were forged.
Okay, finally, we get to tools. And this is where the contrast with Neanderthals gets really, really sharp.
It really does. Homo sapiens toolkits were like functional art. They were constantly evolving, constantly specializing. Think of flint blades as sharp as a modern scalpel.
And specialized tools for specialized tasks.
Exactly. Different spear points for different prey. A heavy, thick point to puncture mammoth hide. A lighter, barbed point for a fast-moving bird or fish. But the real game changer.
The one that extended the hunter's reach.
That would be the atlotl, the spear thrower. It's basically a lever that dramatically increases the range and the force of a thrown spear.
So they could hunt big, dangerous animals from a safer distance.
A much safer distance. It completely changed the game for hunting megafauna. And this is the key difference. While Neanderthal tools were effective, they stayed pretty much the same for tens of thousands of years. Our tools showed constant, rapid iteration.
So why? If they had the big brains, the physical strength, why did our technology leap forward while theirs sort of stalled?
And that's the real question. It's not about individual intelligence. It's about the invisible advantage. Social structure.
Neanderthals lived in smaller groups.
Much smaller. Isolated clans with incredibly low population density. We're talking maybe 0.02 inhabitants per square kilometer.
And a small group in a high-risk world is fragile.
Very. You have a smaller gene pool. And crucially, you have fewer brains working on problems. And even though they valued their elders, their lower life expectancy meant that less accumulated knowledge got passed down over time. It just wasn't enough to spur rapid innovation.
Plus, their bodies were more demanding.
Huge disadvantage. Their high muscle bodies needed a massive number of calories just to function. When food became scarce, that was a fatal flaw.
Whereas sapiens, we formed these bigger, more complex social networks.
Exactly. Networks that stretched beyond just the immediate family or hunting group. And in a larger network, you can have specialization. Some people get really good at making tools, others at processing hides.
And ideas can travel.
Ideas and innovations like the atlotl or the bone needle could spread quickly across vast distances. So our ultimate weapon was probably just numbers and adaptability. Neanderthals were hyper-specialized for the cold of Europe. We were generalists.
We could adapt to anything. Forests, tundras, deserts.
That flexibility gave us demographic strength. When we finally met the Neanderthals in Europe around 45,000 years ago, it wasn't a simple conflict. The genetic truth tells a much more interesting story.
A story of interbreeding.
Significant interbreeding. It's an amazing fact that every modern human with ancestry outside of Africa carries between 2 and 3% Neanderthal DNA in their genome.
Which suggests what? Absorption, not just replacement.
It strongly suggests that the smaller Neanderthal populations were gradually absorbed, genetically diluted by these much larger waves of incoming H. sapiens.
Creating this incredible genetic mosaic across Europe and Asia.
A constantly shifting mosaic. You see different groups mixing with Denisovans in the East, other sapiens groups replacing each other in Europe, and you see functional adaptations happening incredibly fast.
Like what?
Well, there's genetic analysis of some ancient populations that show combinations we don't see today, like blue eyes paired with dark skin. These were unique functional traits for that specific time and place.
So we come back to the big question. Why did only we, Homo sapiens, survive? When the others, the stronger, the better adapted, vanished.
It wasn't because we were smarter as individuals or physically stronger. It was the winning combination of flexible technology, large-scale cooperation, and relentless adaptability. The Ice Age was the ultimate evolutionary test.
And it's selected for creativity and teamwork.
It selected for creativity, cooperation, and social resilience. And it ruthlessly eliminated any group that couldn't adapt fast enough.
And we are the direct descendants of those survivors.
That's right. The genetic blueprint for modern Europeans, for example, was laid down by these very populations that mastered the cold around 19,000 years ago. They are our direct ancestors.
It's just an incredible takeaway. Our ancestors survived conditions that would make a modern apocalypse movie look like a tropical vacation.
With nothing but sharp stones, animal hides, and fire. They looked at a planet that was actively trying to freeze them out, and they found a way to win.
That ingenuity, that resilience is our deepest inheritance.
It really is. And, it leaves you with a final thought to consider. Those fragments of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA we all carry, they still subtly influence our health, our immune systems, even our appearance today. So think about it. What part of your own resilience, your own ability to handle a tough situation, is tied to that ancient 2 or 3%? It's a silent, frozen inheritance, a reminder of the time the world tried to eliminate humanity and failed.